As Halloween is upon us in the United States and in Canada, today we are talking about some creepy things, like why the tech guy can make your computer work as soon as he enters the room, why some people have bad juju wherever they go, and what spells you can do to either implement or break technical bad spells. Welcome to my pre-Halloween edition of Math Science History.
We'll be right back after a quick word from my advertisers.
Have you ever noticed how your computer suddenly behaves itself the moment the IT guy walks into the room? Or how that rattling air conditioner quiets down as soon as the technician arrives? Do engineers have a supernatural aura, like Ghostbusters for misbehaving machines? Could they be Texorcists who can fix things with their mind power? Are they filled with an aura that brings with them the engineer proximity effect? And are there those who carry with them the reverse, like the Pauli effect? Today, I'm taking a closer look at that with a Halloween twist. Because who doesn't love a good superstition hiding in plain sight?
Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
So imagine this. You're in a recording studio. You've gone 4 days without sleep. Actually, I don't have to imagine it. I've been there. But still, imagine this. You've been setting up a room, preparing everything for the next band to come in, taping down cables on the floor, plugging in mics, doing sound checks. You're exhausted, but you've got this. Finally, the band shows up at around 11 p.m. to record, and everything breaks down. Nothing works. The recording board hisses like a snake, the vocals distort, or there's no vocal in the mix. Everybody's groaning. Luckily, there's an engineer on duty. You call her, she walks in, she doesn't even touch the console. She just stands there, probably holding a cup of coffee because she's at work and it's midnight. And suddenly, silence. The hiss disappears. The track runs smoothly. Everybody in the room stares at her like she's some kind of wizard or goddess. Now, is this witchcraft? A ghost in the machine? No, it is the engineer proximity effect. Scientists and technicians often chalk it up to the observer effect, not in the strict quantum sense, but in the everyday sense that when someone knowledgeable is watching, people behave differently. Musicians become more precise, less sloppy. They double-check cables before the engineer arrives. Even the engineer, without realizing it, might subtly adjust a knob or reseat a connection. To everyone else, it looks like magic. But here's the fun part. Superstition grows in the spaces where logic feels thin. And at 3 a.m. in a dark studio with cables snaking across the floor, the line between science and sorcery blurs. Okay, here's another one. Imagine this. You're working in a commercial real estate office in a high-rise while interning in the recording studio. Again, days without sleep. And again, I don't need to imagine this. I've been there. It's midsummer in the Valley of Los Angeles. People are calling because the building's air conditioning is not working. They are angry and they're threatening to not pay next month's rent. In fact, it gets so bad that one of the attorneys from the offices upstairs comes down and pees on one of your tall plastic plants. Again, I don't have to imagine this. It actually happened and it was really gross. So you call your engineers, Chewy and Frank, who head up to the roof to take a look at the AC unit. They open the unit and Frank touches a cable and literally it starts working. Were Chewy and Frank magical? Was it their garlic breath? And why is it working now? This is, again, another classic form of the engineer proximity effect. Air conditioning units, car engines, refrigerators, they all have a way of acting up until the repair person shows up. The explanation? It was a combination of the day cooling down and of discovering that a connection had been compromised by a raccoon that had chewed through insulation and shorted out some components. But superstition turns this into a story of presence, as if the engineers exude a garlic-smelling aura that machines fear. Think of it as a kind of technological evil eye. The tech doesn't even need to touch the screws. Their very presence drives out the gremlins. And there's the most infamous universal case of all, the office printer. Nah, we're not going to go there. Printers are the worst. They are the office gremlins. Even the most powerful engineer proximity effect cannot fix them, and it's best if we don't even talk about printers. Moving on. But the engineer proximity effect does still happen, and psychologists refer to it as intermittent reinforcement. It's the same principle that keeps gamblers glued to slot machines. We fall into this trap where we think that correlation means causation. Our brains search for patterns even when those patterns are false. Just ask a mathematician. The timing convinces us that it must be whoever walked into the room. And this is the same logic behind rabbit's feet, lucky socks, or even cursed numbers. It's the sorcery of psychology. In the past, people feared broken harvest tools, cracked glass, or chimneys that whistled. Today, we fear frozen screens, glitchy Wi-Fi, or even the death rattle of an air conditioner. Machines have become our new oracles. And whenever fear mixes with unpredictability, superstition blooms. The engineer proximity effect is simply the modern echo of older beliefs. The idea that some people carry luck, aura, or power that changes the world around them. Interestingly, engineers themselves aren't immune. Some admit they knock wood before testing a delicate circuit. Pilots follow ritual checklists with almost religious fervor. Even scientists at CERN once jokingly staged a mock ritual to, quote, appease the collider gods. Humans can't help it. We are pattern-making creatures, even in the heart of science.
We'll be right back after a quick word from my advertisers.
So today, in this episode, I'm going to bring in a special guest who has not only experienced the engineer proximity effect, he's also an engineer, and he carries the aura of the engineer proximity effect with him. I like to refer to him as a magical kind of person, mostly because he's my husband and he's kind of cool that way. So Joe has developed many strengths in his 40 years of engineering and audio experience. He designs and integrates technical systems, solves problems with creativity and vision. He develops standards and practices and communicates and solves complex issues. And he builds strong, responsive teams. And I can attest, this guy is a badass. And he currently works at Universal Studios. His expertise with audio systems covers a wide range of areas, including design, installation, programming, bench tech, etc., etc. Yeah, he was a bench tech. That's how he started out. He is also a programmer, and he provides expert support. His experience includes Oscar and Emmy-winning post-production facilities in film and television, and he has worked for award-winning recording studios. He has done live events for rock shows and even the President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, my husband, Joe Berkman. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
All right. So today the podcast is all about the engineer proximity effect. And I know that you have experienced this firsthand. In fact, you talk about it from time to time. In fact, it's even happened with us when I'll be in here going, Joe, this isn't working. And you'll just walk right in and suddenly things start working right. Am I right?
It happens.
Yes, it happens. It happens a lot. So I want to ask you a few questions about this engineer proximity effect that we will just refer to as EPE, the EPE event. So can you give us an example of one of your EPE moments?
One. It is almost a daily event. Typically it involves a user being impatient, and when they are asked to demonstrate the problem, they go through the process in a very meticulous manner, and of course nothing goes wrong, and they'll say, "Oh, it's because you're here." Now the other way that it happens is sometimes it's just an intermittent problem, and it isn't something that occurs through user interaction. It just happens and no one can make it happen. That's the other element.
So there's like magical forces involved.
Right.
Okay. Have you ever walked away from an EPE moment and heard the machine break down again, like it was just waiting for you to leave the room?
Absolutely. That is not unusual at all. I've had events where we thought we repaired something. I thought it was fixed. Like, oh, clearly that's what was wrong. It's been remedied. You guys can work now. And we'll leave the room and boom, that wasn't it.
Okay. So, how often do people ask you to just stand there because you're like their good luck charm and they don't want you to leave the room? They just want it to keep working.
Possibly more often than you're aware of. And frequently it that occurs whenever there's some sort of perceived high pressure situation. And it's just we want you sitting here in case something goes wrong. And generally that's one of those times when you're just really getting paid to just sit in a chair and keep it warm. Because that's all we end up doing. If something were to really go wrong, we wouldn't be sitting in the chair.
Exactly. But to your defense, as an engineer, you sit in that chair while things are working. But the work you've done in the background, the work that you and your guys and all the wonderful people there working in the post production facility at Universal, you guys work hard.
Yeah.
You work really hard to ensure that things don't break down. So when those moments happen, you have to sit in that room and you're just sitting there. To them, you're like their good luck charm. But to you, you're actually analyzing why is it working now and what can we do to replicate this so that we can keep things working effectively. Am I right?
Yeah, the team, I'm certainly not alone. I'm part of a really fantastic team that there's no one person could do all of that work alone. Nobody understands all of the elements that are involved on their own. It is absolutely 100% a team effort. So I can't stress that enough. But as far as having us sit in the room and babysit things, that's actually quite the double edged sword because on one hand, they see us just sitting there, but then when we're really doing the work, no one's watching us. So it leads to this perceived, wizard behind the curtain mystique. They know something's happening, but they don't know what it is or where it is or when.
It's magical. So, since you stand there and your presence has this ability to keep things working, do you secretly charge your aura overnight so that electronics behave when you walk in the room?
Probably, but I'm not aware that I'm doing it. But now that you mention it and it's been put into words, I think now's the time to figure out how to package that and monetize it.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
That'll be the next endeavor.
Yes, yes. And this idea is for other engineers listening too. If you want to monetize this, here's what you can do. You can get some cloth and you cut it into little squares and then you just rub a little on your neck, put it on a keychain, and it's like a rabbit's foot, except you can put it in every room where you're supposed to be working. And it's like a rabbit's foot. It's their lucky charm to keep things working while you're not in the room. And I think maybe starting at $5, a little piece of cloth, a keychain, I think it's a really worthy endeavor.
I think you're onto something. I think we're definitely going to put a merch table up in the engineering office next week.
Exactly. I think it's a wonderful idea. Okay. You are rationally grounded. You're very scientifically minded, which is why I love you. As a rationally grounded engineer, do you think that when the EPE events happen in the studio, do you often use those moments as a teaching moment with the editors?
I think everybody appreciates it when something like that turns into a teaching moment. And frequently when somebody hits an incorrect button or somebody rushes through a process and we have an opportunity to say, okay, let's slow down and analyze how we're going about doing whatever it is the problematic endeavor. Then if we go through it carefully, people realize, oh yeah, I could do that. And sometimes it reveals a better way to do things too. So just because things slowed down doesn't mean we're not going to learn something that can't help us later on. And that's frequently the case.
Well, I do know that the guys you work with you are all just a think tank. It's always wonderful to come and visit Universal and just be around such a great group of smart guys. I think one thing I really love about your department and the guys you work with is that no one wants to be a hero. You all want to be a team and everybody works together. And as far as engineers working together, it is so inspiring because I think that's how every work environment should be. It should be a team, no heroes.
I would agree. I mean, I use the phrase, it's amazing what we can accomplish if we don't care who gets the credit.
Exactly. Okay, here's my next question. And I think this is going to go out for non-STEM people that I know that you will have really good advice for. Having worked in the recording studio myself, I have learned from amazing engineers, including my former boss and mentor, Mike Morangel, who you work with now, to always troubleshoot before you call somebody.
That's true.
Always figure out the chain of events that got you into that pickle. And so, to my point, what's your best advice for non-engineers when something breaks down?
The frequency that simply rebooting pieces of equipment solves a problem is a trope, and it is that way because it's true. That solves a lot of problems. What doesn't solve a problem is when a user says, "Oh yeah, I did that already." You can't lie to us. There's a record that shows when the piece of equipment's been powered on and off. So we know. The engineer proximity effect is best realized when we're standing there and we ask a user to repeat the problem. And if they can't repeat the problem, generally speaking, they were skipping a step or rushing through the process. Or frequently, if you have to explain something to someone else, you end up paying closer attention to what's going on and you realize where the problem was in the first place. So the two things that I would recommend people do most often is retrace your steps slowly and carefully. And if that doesn't work, reboot the equipment, then give us a call.
So, does this also apply to working with printers?
No. No, printers, I believe that there should be a stash of explosives someplace in the engineering department reserved only for printers.
Oh, yes, I agree. I think we need some sort of a place where everybody can take their printer and then just watch somebody blow it up. Wouldn't that be fun? Like some sort of fireworks station, where you bring in your printers and just watch us set them on fire.
Everyone can relate to the violent act imposed on a printer in the movie Office Space.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that is the best scene ever.
I get on my soapbox about printers. Like the very first computer peripheral after a keyboard was a printer. You would think that they would have those down by now, and not.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up, but I want to ask you if you have any final words.
Well, we're not magicians, but know this: when an engineer comes in the room, they want to solve your problem as quickly as you want it solved. We may be getting paid by the hour, but it doesn't benefit us to delay you in any way. Remember that we're there to help you. So share with us what you're doing, and we will do everything we can to get you back on the track.
And then in the meantime, just leave a little piece of cloth behind on a keychain.
Exactly. And, occasional contributions to the tip jar.
For the pieces of cloth.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Joe Berkman, engineer at Universal Studios, and my wonderful and handsome husband. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Speaking of tech guys and gals, I want to give a special shout out to the tech people at Libsyn. Though my podcast runs seamlessly through Libsyn, these tech people are so on top of their game and they are so helpful every time I reach out to them when something kind of goes wonky. They actually respond personally. No bots, no AI, just a real human on the other end who is in my corner to make sure that my podcast is up and running. With Libsyn, I can distribute math, science, history to every podcast platform out there. They make it so easy. I get to keep full control of my content and still monetize. If you're thinking of starting a podcast or you are thinking of moving your podcast to a new platform, I highly recommend Libsyn. To sign up for this awesome service, visit libsyn.com. That is LIBSYN.com. And when you go to check out, use the promo code MATHNERD. That's right, MATHNERD, to reference math, science, history. And here is to happy, easy podcasting. Now, what about those people who carry the opposite effect? They have this aura that is like a gray, dirty ball of dust hovering over their head. They walk into a room and everything breaks. This is called the Pauli effect, named after the Nobel laureate Wolfgang Pauli, who, according to legend, couldn't step near a lab without the gremlins waking up. His mere presence supposedly made equipment pop, fizzle, and flame out. Scientists half feared it, half laughed at it, and eventually gave the superstition a name, the Pauli effect. Not to be confused with the Pauli exclusion principle, two different things. So let's set the mood. Imagine a quiet experimental hall late at night. Vacuum pumps sigh, oscilloscopes blink their green eyelids, then a door opens. A theorist, with his coat slung over his arm, steps through. A meter pegs. A tube pops. A circuit smokes. Someone mutters, is Pauli here? In the folklore of the 20th century physics, that line wasn't always a joke. The Pauli effect isn't a scientific law. It's a running gag that hardened into a myth because it landed so squarely on a universal feeling. When you really need delicate apparatus to behave, it doesn't. And if the field's sharpest theorist happens to be in the room when it misbehaves, the timing writes the punchline for you. The nickname stuck so well that colleagues quipped about a second Pauli exclusion principle, which means a working device and Wolfgang Pauli may not occupy the same room. Even Pauli himself leaned into the bit. He told friends that on a honeymoon drive in 1934, his car failed for no obvious reason, and he took it as proof that the effect followed him outside the lab. Years later, at Princeton in 1950, a cyclotron burned. Pauli asked whether the mischief should be credited to his namesake curse. Are these causal claims? Nah, they're just part of the lore. One of the most repeated stories goes like this. In the 1920s, an expensive apparatus at the University of Göttingen suddenly failed with no clear cause. James Franck, the director, reportedly wrote to Pauli, who was not there, to say that he was innocent this time. Now, the punchline. Pauli had changed trains at Göttingen station right around the moment the device died. The anecdote appears in George Gamow's book, 30 Years That Shook Physics, and has been retold ever since. Is it an airtight story? I think it's best filed under folklore repeated by reputable witnesses. But it's the story that made the effect famous. The Nobel laureate Otto Stern, experimental ace and friend of Pauli, allegedly banned Pauli from entering his Hamburg laboratory, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. If a delicate molecular beam kit had a habit of going sideways when Pauli approached, the simplest fix was to keep the theorist on the other side of the door. Whether the ban was a strict rule or a running joke probably changed with the day, but the idea that Stern kept Pauli at bay is deeply embedded in the record. Rudolf Peierls, another eminent physicist, told a story about colleagues who planned to parody the Pauli effect by dropping a chandelier at a reception the moment Pauli entered. The prop was rigged to fail on cue. Get this. It didn't fail. The chandelier stuck. The attempted spoof turned deliciously into another Pauli effect by refusing to break as planned. So even the jokes couldn't reliably misbehave on schedule. A Princeton memory often rides along. A cyclotron mishap in 1950 that Pauli himself had half-jokingly logged under his effect. It's one of those lines that lives because it sounds perfectly Pauli, skeptical, wry, and just credulous enough to keep the story alive. So why did an audience of hard-nosed empiricists embrace a superstition? Well, there's 3 reasons. First, Intermittent faults are maddening. Any experimentalist can tell you that the worst failures are the ones that don't repeat under observation. Pauli, a towering intellect who was more theorist than hands-on tinkerer, often arrived precisely when a struggling experimenter wanted a second pair of eyes. If the glitch vanished, it looked like his aura fixed it. If it worsened, well, curse confirmed. Humans narrate randomness. We are fast pattern finders, even when the pattern is false. Okay, second, physics culture has always included gallows humor. The Pauli effect gave colleagues a safe way to vent about fragile apparatus without accusing each other of incompetence. Blame the gremlin attached to the great man. It's the same dark comedy that names bugs after the day they appeared or the person who walked into the room. The joke diffuses the stress. Third, Pauli himself questioned the truth. He had a taste for deep ideas and psychological nuance. His long correspondence with Carl Jung on archetypes and synchronicity shows he could entertain bold, offbeat frames for describing coincidence without confusing them for physics. Pauli would occasionally blame the curse if something went wrong, and according to Arthur Miller, who wrote 137, Young Pauli and the Pursuit of a Scientific Obsession, noted that Pauli said he would feel a surge of energy before a mishap, and half-seriously treated the effect as real in letters and quips. That self-aware wink helped the legend endure. And now, I'm going to go over the witch's spellbook for engineers. Every lab has its ghosts. Not the kind that drag chains, but the kind that drag error codes and strange rattles. In every studio, lab, and office, there are invisible forces that seem to decide whether things work or don't. Some call them bugs. Others call them gremlins. But today, we're not hunting ghosts. We are opening the witch's spellbook for engineers, a practical grimoire for anyone who's ever watched a machine misbehave and sworn it was haunted. The truth is, there's real magic in the way good engineers work. It isn't supernatural. It's psychological, procedural, and patient. So, let's light a candle, metaphorically speaking, and read the spell that keeps gremlins at bay. Spell 1, the Circle of Calm. Our first spell is deceptively simple. Stop, breathe, reset. Picture the moment when something breaks. The mixer hisses, the code crashes, the circuit smells faintly of smoke. The human reflex is panic. We grab cables, we hit restart, we mutter unprintable words, but every frazzled motion feeds the chaos. Science tells us why. Under stress, our prefrontal cortex, the part that reasons, dims, and the amygdala takes over. We literally stop seeing options. A frazzled mind can't fix a frazzled machine. So, the Circle of Calm isn't mystical at all. It's a neurological spell. Step back. Exhale. Observe the room. The act of centering resets both brain and equipment. Many engineers swear that half of troubleshooting is simply walking away long enough for logic to reboot, and long enough to get a cup of coffee, but that's beside the point. That walking away, by the way, is the secret heart of the engineer proximity effect. Machines seem to behave when the calm expert walks in, not because of aura or magnetism, but because composure itself has power. Now, spell number 2. The Chain of Events Charm. Every mystery leaves breadcrumbs. The second spell, Chronologia, teaches you to follow them. So before you accuse the universe or Wolfgang Pauli of cursing your gear, trace the timeline. What happened just before the failure? Was there a power surge, a software update, a new plug sharing the outlet? Real engineers live by logs and timestamps, which is the secret texts of cause and effect. Reading them is a kind of a divination, but instead of tea leaves, you have sensor graphs and error messages. Ask not what is broke, the spell reminds us. Ask what happened before it broke. Because every malfunction has a lineage, and most hauntings dissolve once that lineage is known. There is something wonderfully medieval about it, gazing at omens and interpreting signs. The sorcery is simply attention. Spell number 3, the Mirror Shield. Now we come to the protective charm, the Mirror Shield, forged to deflect blame. In Pauli's day, a shattered tube could earn nervous laughter and a finger pointed his way. He carried the joke well, but the pattern it reveals is timeless. When humans can't explain failure, we assign it to people. We invent curses, jinxes, and scapegoats. Psychologists call it confirmation bias. Once someone is labeled unlucky, every coincidence polishes the legend, and soon the lab becomes divided, those who fix and those who are feared to break. The Mirror Shield breaks that spell. Instead of reflecting frustration onto a colleague, reflect curiosity back on yourself. What do I actually know about this failure? What evidence supports the story I'm telling? True engineers don't cast blame, they cast light. Every time you pause before pointing, you strengthen the ward around your team. The lab grows safer, saner, and a little less haunted. Spell number 4. Okay, the voice is getting old, I know. Okay, spell number 4, the Ritual of Order. Here's a spell older than alchemy. Order banishes chaos. Every label, every neatly coiled cable, every line of commented code is a small act of protection. It's what keeps entropy, Pauli's favorite imp, from creeping in. Some call this mundane, I call it ritual magic. The ritual of the tidy workspace, the checklist before a test, the duplicate backup, each gesture says to the universe, I am paying attention. And attention, as every witch and scientist knows, is the first ingredient in control. Humor helps too. Tell your apprentices, every neatly coiled cable keeps a demon of disorder asleep. They'll think you're weird, but they'll start coiling. Just trust me on this one. Okay, spell number 5, the Incantation of Curiosity. Our final spell is the oldest one in the book. It predates witches, predates labs. It's called Curiosity. Curiosity is the only spell that never wears off. It is the eternal counter-curse to superstition. When we ask why instead of who, we break the loop of fear that feeds myths like the Pauli effect. Remember, even Pauli himself spent his life chasing the unknown, not fearing it. He could joke about being cursed and still calculate the neutrino's existence in the same breath. That is curiosity at work, the ability to hold wonder and reason in the same hand. When a machine misbehaves, ask questions until the fear fades. Take things apart. Test assumption. In short, it's called troubleshooting. It's simple, it's easy, and just troubleshoot. So, we have reached the end of the spellbook. The campfire crackles low. The ghosts of malfunction retreat to their servers and ducts, whispering about tomorrow's tests. If you follow the rituals, calm, chronologia, the mirror shield, order, and curiosity, you already embody the engineer proximity effect. You are the person whose presence steadies the chaos. You are the calm in the circuit. So tonight, as you power down the monitors and hang your headphones, repeat the closing charm with me. May your wires never cross, your code never crash, and your machines hum peacefully in your presence. May you walk into any room and bring calm to the chaos, for that is the real magic, not superstition, but attention. For that is the real magic, not superstition, but attention. God, this is so dorky. Okay, so as always, thank you for listening to Math, Science, History, and may your lab stay ghost-free. Until next time, carpe diem. Thank you for listening to Math, Science, History. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and a review, because those ratings and reviews really help the podcast. If you would like to listen to Math, Science, History without the ads on your podcast player, visit us at mathsciencehistory.supercast.com. mathsciencehistory.com. There, you can sign up for a tier, which will give you early release podcasts, research notes, bonus material, and discounts on our merchandise. Also, you can find the transcripts at mathsciencehistory.com under the link called Transcriptorium. And while you're there, remember to click on that coffee button and make a donation, because every single dollar that you donate supports our production costs and keeps our educational website free. And until next time, carpe diem.